I see. Well, I think we've reached sort of an impasse here, and I think you very much summed up your conclusive vision for the state of an ideal nation in regards to at least their economic standings and the byproducts thereof. So I think I'll cap it off with mine. My vision in this particular field is for a nation which is vastly automated, so that there will be very few mundane, basic, unskilled jobs that will be available to the people, and thereby an increase and boom in fields which are more technical and specialized and reliant upon personal knowledge and skill, so that the people may benefit from this sort of advancement in technology and society, that they may have more time to themselves in addition to their works, their labors, yielding of a very comfortable, very high quality of life existence, um, without the damnation of the nation's economy.
See, you're coming into this with the perspective that the economy is responsible for the bad actions of bad apples. If somebody doesn't follow the curve or decides to go off rails, then that is their own priority. And I believe in a society that enforces traditionalism and work and values people who are successful. There shouldn't be options for living poor lifestyles. Homelessness, as an example. Homelessness in its entirety should just be reduced to, oh, well, you just had a bad run, but now you're going to get back up and you're going to work. I mean, look, I don't want to oversimplify it. Obviously, I might be doing that a bit, but I feel that individual citizens who had the responsibility to make change, say if I were homeless, I would probably figure stuff out on my own. We're kind of coming in this with the presumption that our citizens are more intelligent than they really are because less and less people are working. And so, in about 50 years from now, what do you think society is going to be like then if hardly any people are working?
Uh, well, well, I'm not sure which particular nation and statistics you're looking at, but unemployment over here in the United States has been dropping to a significant low, to the point where it's only a few percent. I believe it's no more than 10. I think it was about 5%, last I checked and heard the statistic listed off. Now, I don't know exactly the source. However, I'm sure I could look that up in a quick bit. Um, in any event, there should absolutely be these options, because no matter what you do, no matter the laws you enforce, no matter you could consign these people off to some gulags where they're forced labor, they're forced into their labor, and you would still have people who unfortunately fall through the cracks and happen to face this unfortunate end. No matter what you do, so long as your society requires human interaction to have production, which of course there always will be, um, you will have people who happen to find themselves in destitution and squalor. Whether that happens to be the variation of being extremely impoverished or being homeless. You will have these people no matter what you do, no matter the laws you inflict, no matter the great disincentivizations for it. You will find these people who happen to be there. And I think we should, for those who actually will find themselves out given the option of this sort of circle, this cycle of uh, being impoverished to such a great degree, you will have a better society for it, and you will in fact have one that's more in line with your um, uh, vision. It must be implemented correctly, yes. It must be carefully managed, yes. But these must be things that happen, especially if you want something that resembles your wishes.
My wishes are that of traditionalism, as I've said before. We're at a time. We really were. And so I want to get back to that time. What I need to figure out is what did we do differently back then? And I am talking about not just unemployment rates, but people working specific hours. How many hours are people working? How much money are they working? And what are national averages? I'm thinking that the average person, I'm not sure if this is household or average person, is making 50 something $1,000 a year. You think we should aim higher? And what are Asians making? I should look up some statistics soon, but what are they making? What are national averages? So, if we are to work towards something, I think a good goal through any form of capitalism or any form of social Darwinism based upon money and wealth, we need to find a way that, well, it just needs to work to come back to those old days. And I think if you do put taxation on people who are poor, and you do, how do we say, just kind of look at rich people in this light that it becomes a societal norm, soon enough, in hundreds of years, we could be looking at national averages of 100,000 a year or 200,000 a year, or who knows. And I think if we have goals and we have standards and we say, all right, listen, kid, when you grow up, I want you to attempt to get to this point. I want you to try to see if you can make this much in a year. I'm not sure if that's how people would go about it. But once again, a society, and this is why I'm pro monarchy, right? You can't have a good society, a good nation, without good people. You can't. Because it's the citizens within that society that abide to your rules. You can make as many rules as you want, but then will not change attitudes. If people want to live happily, they just need to have the right mindset. After all, there are probably people who like, uh, well, how do we say, partaking in terrible jobs. If only as many more of us were like that, and we just didn't really care. There are those people who aren't irritated by much. If we had more tolerance and more resistance and more immunity, I believe if we weren't reluctant to do these things, we'd just do them. And it wouldn't even be that very bad. It's more or less our, our brains kind of giving us this glow that, oh, we're not going to enjoy this. And a lot of the time we don't, to be fair, but I think it's worth just striving towards a society like the old days. Bring a lot of things back, in fact. This new society may have technology, but it doesn't have the spirit. It doesn't have the spirit.
And that's one of the reasons that at least I would say the spirit is a discipline. Am in favor of that mandatory stateside military service. Um, but I think what you're really doing here is you're arguing against the nature of humanity. You can't, no matter what you do, you will never be able to force people into a drone like state with any deal of ease. And if you do, well, you've seen how history treats those people who inflict such rule.
I have. And they messed up themselves. Not in the sense that they were trying to enforce these laws, but in the sense that they could have gotten away with it. Do you think that there's just nothing to learn from these people's triumphs and, well, failures? They've failed, they've tried their best to maintain a society through fascism, if they want to achieve it. But they had good causes. Maybe not the way they achieved it. Maybe not the idea of killing people to do so. But through the idea of controlling one's people, if you are to dominate the world, if you are to make people think the way you think, Do you think people leading that cause believed in the whiny, leftist, indoctrinated beliefs that our generations have now? Our generation, this generation, right? No, of course not. Because people lived in a mindset. In fact, you can even find demographics, right? Specific areas that are dominated by specific political opinions. And people wanting to live a certain way, shouldn't they be left to their own society? Or should a society branch off from this and enforce their own fascist laws, but people can leave if they want?
Well, I do think we should absolutely learn from the successes and failures of history and the historical leaders who, even if they were toppled and failed, um, they still have passed on their legacy, even if they were um, through almost every moral lens considered awful and terrible and absolutely egregious. They still have their lessons to pass through their actions and inactions. And in fact, that's what I attempt to base my opinion off of. I simply think you have a conclusion that, with the facts that we both see, is far and away from the sort of uh, uh, long run effect that I foresee.
The greater good is a calling pressing matter because in today's society, do you think people sure social democracy will be voting for longer hours and less pay and stuff like that? It's just, yeah, it's ridiculous to think people would vote for that. And so the idea of a monarchy or the idea of having a dictatorship enforce specific laws, it just works for me. Especially really controversial opinions that need to be made into authoritarian positions. Now, yeah, obviously you're not going to agree on that, but I believe that if you had your own little policies on how you'd run a country, you wouldn't want people voting for you, would you? Because that would imply that people would be voting against you. And, well, people who vote aren't very smart, generally speaking.
I would say many people who do vote are intelligent. They just aren't very well informed.
Mm,
But if I were running for some sort of higher office, then I would absolutely beckon people to vote for or against me with the knowledge that they possess. Whether they happen to be hardline, die hard for, or absolutely against my opinions and my platforms and my statements, I think overall the more correct persons will win out in the end.
or the majority is just picking because they've been given the choice. I mean, I think democracy is a good example of how liberty, the ability to vote, can indeed create bad policies. If somebody really doesn't want something to happen, well, the majority isn't going to change that. Remember, 7.4 billion wrongs don't make a right. Just because the majority is in favor of it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a good policy or make good change. In fact, it could make negative change to a nation. So the idea of voting, the idea of this stuff, it's a contradiction to principles that are written in the Constitution. Because, oh, wait, no, you can change the Constitution now if you elect somebody who might go against things like this. It just feels stupid, the idea of social democracy now. Who really has faith
And that is
in
why
the voters?
and that is why it is the requirement of the democratic peoples who make up the state, who may not hold an office of power, however, are still active agents in this nation, must take up their rights to seek the vision that the people as a whole may wish. And if they happen to make a poor decision, then it is their duty to work against it.
Yes, but the decision has already been made, which is really my main gripe with it.
You well, you may repeal those decisions, as we've seen time and time again. That's the thing with a social or a democratic republic. You may make decisions and you may see the negative effects, so then you may come up with a different conclusion and work towards it. That's the entire theory in a nutshell.
I do believe that giving people the ability of this freedom, people keep praising, especially since America was founded upon that. The Constitution and the amendments were founded upon that completely. Freedom of the religion, freedom of speech, freedom to choose things in life. I believe that people will take this to the extreme in which, well, in their own cases, they feel as though, oh, there's not a law against this, so it's a little in the gray area. Let's commit the crime anyway. I feel like these are the individual isolated instances that occur because of maybe our overlapping freedom. It may not. I mean, the how do I say this? The country says you cannot kill somebody if, well, they're not attacking you. Only in self defense can you kill somebody. But then the whole idea of democracy is that it breaks that, and people vote for killing, I don't know, this or that in a specific area under, I don't know, circumstances or something like that. Maybe they're a group. I don't know. You can campaign for things against the Constitution. You can campaign for banning guns. You can do stuff like that. You can stop the Second Amendment. And so, if democracy is so linked with the Constitution, how come democracy in votes seems to oppose that? It just doesn't fit very well into American society, really. An American society should follow through with its traditional amendments, not create new ones.
Uh, well, I would say that the Constitution absolutely needs to change with the times to fit the consequences of the era. I don't think it should change drastically. I don't think it should encompass everything. I think it should take on the glaring national issues and international issues that we may face. But I'm not saying we should have a new amendment every week.
I am saying. Oh, no,
But
you go ahead.
the thing is on the ability to campaign against the Constitution. That is uh, in contingency with this. That is why the judicial branch exists, so that you may be able to rule things unconstitutional if the people happen to allow it to slip and pass by and um, don't consider it a real threat against their founding principles and their morals, etc., etc. That is why there is a number of contingent redundancies in place to disallow something such as that from occurring. Of course, you are allowed to speak against the amendment. That's the entire point of the freedom of speech and expression. That doesn't mean people will always do the right thing with it. And even the same, if you were to have your version of a monarchy, you would still have people who would act against that in every way possible. As I've said, I think you're really taking a romanticized a stance against the nature of humanity. No matter what you do, you will have these negative consequences, and you will have some that drastically outweigh the others. Um, in fact, there's a quote about this. Now, I'll probably butcher it, and I don't want to clickety clack search that up on Google because that's horrible to
Go
listen
ahead.
to. Um, um, but it goes along the lines of democracy is the worst uh, type of government you can have, except for all of the others. Yes, every system you implement will have flaws, but I do believe that a democratic republic is the most perfect um, sort that you can have.
If you have one ruler, people are going to be against that. But if you issue a policy of which gets most votes and that policy becomes a reality, most people are going to be against that. I don't see any difference with overthrowing the government and overthrowing a singular leader, since the singular leader is, regardless, linked to the government, and so they share many values, especially in terms of lawfulness. So, really, the idea of having somebody you'd elect on purpose who's really good with, how do we say, who's really good with making laws, very professional, and makes laws in favor of a specific demographic. Yes, biased, absolutely biased. They're not making laws on the spot. They've already got their plate decided for them. But as opposed to having laws we won't know will be passed or not, completely inconsistent. Wouldn't you rather somebody who you'd rely on? Because if somebody matched your policies perfectly and they became the head of a monarchy, you'd much prefer that, don't lie, to a social democracy. You'd
No, I
have
wouldn't.
everything in favor of.
And I may like their policies, I may like their idealisms, I may like their conclusions, but nonetheless, I wouldn't ever elect for a monarch or any sort of singular ruler.
I just don't see why not.
I would, in fact,
I just
what?
don't see why not, though, if it's in favor of everything that you stand for.
Because monarchies don't last. Monarchies are limited to the people, the lifespan of the singular person who happens to be at the head. I may have someone who's fantastic and wonderful and does everything right and is essentially the God Emperor today. But give it 5 years, an assassination later, or perhaps they die of natural causes, and a change in leadership through the hereditary family um, of theirs. And there you have it. You could have an entirely different government. There is no permanence in a monarchy. That's why we've seen all of the ones throughout history which have thrived for a decade, 2 decades, 10, a century, all crumble and fall away. However, you haven't seen the U.S. crumble, have you? Or other democratic, republican, stable, strong, uh, non-precariously placed governments
Not of
alongside
yet.
it
Not of yet.
succeed.
Yet.
And I don't think we will. I don't think we will.
But, who knows? Maybe more ridiculous laws will be ushered in. It's just that you're coming from this with the perspective that you have faith in the people who vote, the people who make these decisions. Now, if people were educated,
I actually have the opposite. I have the opposite. I have faith that people will, in fact, bring and usher and call thitherto uh, their nation destruction and failure, and they will wreak havoc. However, I also have the belief and have the history to back it up that in time, even if these great tragedies and evils are committed, that they will in fact be righted by, if not the generation that it is embedded in, by the next.
long term, that was all. That's what was that's fuck. That is what I was talking about before with making the sacrifice of a genocide or the sacrifice of taking one people out. If this society loses a value, loses a political position, right? Let's say leftism, right? If leftism becomes as stigmatized as supporting murder or rape in the future, a long, long way in the future, you might be able to have a better democracy because my policies and policies that people are turning towards, specifically in groups and circles, right? The red pilling. If people are voting with educated minds, you know what? We can have liberal voters. If they're just voting in an educated manner, that's fine. But are you going to give children the right to vote? I mean, children in the metaphorical sense.
So long as they meet the requirements of being a legal adult, yes. If they happen to be ill-informed, unfortunately, if they happen to be unfit for uh, uh, what I would determine as the mindset and the uh, information that you should walk into a voting booth with, yes, unfortunately. And in addition to this, there should be a great deal of momentum, motion, and legislation towards reducing these amounts of people through forces aside from genocide, as you listed, as they'll not only be far more effective, but they'll also be far longer lasting.
Liberty, you're favoring it a lot, I've noticed. You seem to be putting freedom upon, well, you seem to be putting it on this pedestal, and everything beneath it, such as responsibility, such as national security.
Oh no, I'm quite in favor of responsibility, and I do very much believe in national security. I just think you're going about it in an extremely backwards way.
And nothing backwards about people voting and not knowing what well, they basically don't know what they're voting for because it's not an informed decision. It's people following a popular opinion, one that's probably not even correct. And they take that popular opinion and then it just migrates into this whole section of people in this collective hive mind thinking the same way. They all think the same way. Just take a look at this election. Two distinct people thinking the same way. Everybody on one side is basically the same. It just gets tedious for this being democracy. This is what we want to look forward to next year. If we had a system of electing a leader, but we did it in the sense that, oh, we're not going to have a vote for individual policies. It's just going to be electing a leader. What are they going to vote for? You know, they make the laws. Wouldn't that be better?
Not really. What would be better, however, is having various systems in place, state sponsored or otherwise, um, in which instill a very informed, very straightforward, very principled, however, balanced with a pragmatic uh, set of morals and lack of biases. That would be what's actually good for the people. That would be what's actually good for the nation. Not electing a leader who may or may not pass what is in favor of the people. And when I say the people, I do mean the people of the nation, and thereby the nation, as those people are what comprise it.
Is there any way to reduce the damage of democracy? Do you think that we can somehow manage to fix already existing problems with uneducated voters and people who also would legally vote? I mean, look at this election, right? Trump
Uh,
would have won the popular
yes,
vote. He
I
would have won
do.
the popular vote if it weren't for illegal voting. When we count the numbers, it's like 2.6 million people who illegally voted for Hillary's side. That's a problem with democracy as well.
I've I've heard conflicting information on that actually.
Well, show me by all means anytime you get.
Uh, I might well have to look into that and bring up any information that I can. That would be a very interesting discussion to hold. But for the time being, um, a lot of places actually um, didn't happen to check any kind of identification or anything um, in the voting booths, both for the primary and the secondary. So I understand exactly what you're getting at. I understand your. It's very much the same conversation I have with people who are in favor of anarchism or communism or any other sort of ism. Uh, there are absolutely issues uh, with democracy and a democratic republic. There are issues with any sort of government you inflict. Um,
Yes, there are many
however,
problems.
democratic, yes, there are. However, there are uh, equal or tremendously more solutions to these problems, which can be narrowed down to the most effective, efficient, and productive solutions which can be implemented. It, like I said, it's the same conversation I have with any sort of other ism supporters. There are many different routes you can take, each with their own problems. Ones that I think vastly outweigh their position as a prevalent means of conducting a government in a society in relation to a democratic republic. However, the democratic republic is so fluid that it can essentially be optimized to a point where the prevalent issues, the prevailing issues that we face today, are non-existent within a reasonable period of time.
All right, well,
Whereas you simply can't with systems like monarchism or fascism.
say that, but I don't see any improvements to democracy. If you do want to help the current democracy, you have to kind of understand and have a grasp of how powerful indoctrination is. Now, we've already talked about leftist indoctrination, but let's talk about religious indoctrination. Take Iran, for instance, right? Iran having a mostly Muslim population, they have very similar thoughts, very similar opinions, and a lot of them aren't even allowed to have different thoughts because they don't really just have they don't have a democracy. They kind of have the very fascist imprinted laws that are basically ingrained for a long times, and they haven't changed that. Many human rights violations, especially for women and gay people, um, things like that. But a lot of these people think these laws are completely just, as if they're the law of the land. They're just part of their religion. And so, with the power of indoctrination, everybody's raised like this. We know indoctrination works through, well, practice, but we can't. We're meant to be morally above that. We're not meant to indoctrinate our children to vote for a specific candidate. But do you think that if we show things from both sides, if we just give them the option to hear things out from both sides, to get a good perspective from every argument there is, people will have a good sense of who they're voting for and why they're voting for something. And maybe next time they won't be voting because mere popular opinion.
Yes. And that is, in fact, the success of a democratic republic. That you do have the right to speak out against any sort of campaign towards indoctrinating large numbers of people and towards a particular mode of thought. That is, in fact, why we have such a rise of the right now. That is why you have the ability to speak out for these causes. You have the right to make people question their beliefs and their holdings and their convictions and their principles. That is the success of a democratic republic. And if you're right, well, then by all means, you will succeed in the end. But if you're not, well, you may for a short time.
That's
But eventually, history will take care of any sort of failings that you
that's a problem though.
produce.
That's a problem with having a democratic society, because regardless of you being right or wrong, it doesn't matter in the end, because people will still vote against what is best for them. And I mean, not just for you, not just for me, for them. What will do them better in life, what will make them happier and more successful? They're voting against it. For instance, women voting against, voting against Brexit, right? Or women voting for influxes of migrants and things like that. There's a,
Well, there's actually a great deal of question about Brexit and its actual benefits that it will yield, but I think that's another subject for another uh, string of conversation. However, I think a lot of people. I think what you're getting at here is an argument against emotional voting, and I would absolutely agree with you. Any sort of fascistic or monarchistic solution is not the answer to this. You have to convince them otherwise. You have to present them the facts in a clear, digestible, consumable, palatable way. You, all right, say that the Queen Elizabeth gets off her old fanny and decides, okay, I'm going to start exercising my rule of law and break all of the democratic progress they've made over in the UK and begin making edicts and declarations. And they must be followed to the T, as is the tradition of the kingdom.
well, you may not like it. You may not. You might
Ye-
actually despise it. In fact, what she does. Well, maybe you won't. But even if you do, I think it's more about just respecting the rule of law. The fact is that authority rules over you, and you are beneath the authority, because the government is trying to make its citizens fear. So later on, they become more appreciative that they still have this Western civilization to live in. Truth is that whatever laws the Queen decides to exercise, she's just an historical figure of her time. There'll be more people who enter the monarchy when she dies. There'll be newer people, people who are educated, people who have specific policies that people like me or people like you might agree with. And there is going to be that kind of cycle. The idea of democracy is that it does not change. A democracy will always be a democracy. With monarchy, however, we can find ideas that do work and do not work. The problem is that when people vote in specific policies through a democratic society, we don't have people voting in these ideas who are worthy of doing so. While somebody who is educated and is professional, we're not going to let any idiot become head of monarchy. Nobody's going to do that, all right? We're already laughing at our current leaders.
Actually, that's actually been shown to happen throughout history without exception. That is why monarchies and empires have fallen and failed, because they have because leaders have inherited the title of monarch
Yeah, well,
and have
they
absolutely
have failed.
failed. And even if you happen to have someone who is extremely charismatic, extremely well educated, extremely powerful, these are all incentives for treason within the family. When you have the princes and the principalities and the princesses and queens and all of their extremely influential roles in the society, sure, you may axe some of the fighting from the constituate or constituting people, but then you have it within the upper echelons, which I would reckon is even more dangerous. The thing with a monarchy is it removes all of the power from the people who are beneath them and puts it in the hands of those well above them who have far more resources, who are much more able to take a drastic shift within the kingdom. That's why they don't work. That's why they fail. Because you may well have a string, maybe let's say a millennia of fine leaders. But just like that, in a quick snap, you very well, just as easily, could have the end of that dynasty. That's the issue. You have all of your power consolidated within a single set of people. That's why democratic republics don't fail. You could burn down D.C. right now. You could reduce it to cinders. You could reduce all of the governances to cinders, and you would still have a working, functioning government. It may not be in the state that it was, obviously, but it will still weather on. And on your point of that they don't change, that they don't see any sort of shifting, you can look at America just a decade ago, and you can see great changes within not only the culture, both of the general populace, but also of the ruling uh, legislators and judicial figures and executive members. And you will see great change. Even more so if you look a decade back, 2 decades back.
Here's the thing. If I see an influx of people voting completely horribly, if I see this happening recurring and it gets worse, right? If we check it year by year, of policies people are voting, true democracy, they're voting in for these policies. The only way to break the cycle, so I know things don't go downhill completely, is to elect a singular person. That person may be terrible. That person may be great. But at the very least, we can throw that person out if they're terrible this one time. Because the democracy voting somebody in, or democracy making specific laws against what is morally righteous, or in my opinion, morally righteous, however subjective that may be, we might see people reoccurringly voting for things that somebody reasonable would disagree with, however you want to define reasonable. If this is going downhill, if people are constantly uneducated, and it's going to the extent of which, well, freedom needs to take a back step. As much as some people may love freedom, when it gets in the way of when laws come in to take away other people's freedom, and therefore, despite it being a democracy, it becomes quite authoritarian, the idea of a monarch, it's like a solution, right? It's like the salt on the table that nobody sees. It's
I'm
it's
sorry.
necessary within itself because it's a solution in modern day. The idea of the monarch is kind of a savior to this complex of people voting consistently horrible choices.
Then the answer to those people making consistently terrible choices is not a monarch. It is a campaign of information to win the minds of the people who make these decisions indirectly.
I don't think their minds
vote.
can be changed, though.
They very well can. Just as you see people taking up arms for anarchy and Antifa and anarcho-communism and SJWistic cults. You didn't see them before, but people change their mind. Mostly with emotional campaigns. But they can just as easily be combated with the same methods, and in fact injected with actual factualistic, realistic sets of information. The thing is, you have all of the tools presented before you that your opposition does, and in fact, you can use them even better if you are indeed correct. Because you are correct. And if you present that information to people, if you rally, if you become the leader a monarch would be, if you take the mantle of one with strength of will and strength of character, then in the end, you will find success, and you will break any sort of negative cycle that you see before you. That's why it works.
It can. But once again, you have more faith. I mean, you said you don't have that much faith, but compared to me, right? It's more of
No, I just have a different perspective on history, I suppose.
in modern history with the democracy. People who voted for the two candidates last year technically, late last year, it was probably the most uneducated voting time of anybody's lives. I mean, it was a joke. It was one long-lasting meme, and this meme was just drawn out for so many months. I think if next year's election it becomes more ridiculous than this, the idea of automatically electing somebody to do the busy work, like it's a comfortable idea because you know this is like the default. The default person gets in, or we could compromise. We could say, all right, a democracy doesn't get the right to vote for somebody, but the thing is, the person who is automatically elected, right, through a monarchy, has their policies voted for, but they get to choose which policies they issue, or something like that. But strict democracy to me seems like it's been going downhill the past few years. It's become more dumbed down and less educated over time. And educating people is, well, it's something they should be able to do by themselves because they've been indoctrinated. These aren't ideas that are well formed. These are ideas based upon popular opinion, one opinion.
Actually, there are quite a few opinions. And in fact, it seems to happen to be split quite down the middle on who voted for who. Now, the thing is, with the election, is that it wasn't simply the voice of the people which happened to get these people into where they were. Hillary into the secondary, and, well, Trump as the president. There was also quite a large stack of evidence for the Democratic National Convention having its hands in the pie and manipulating things in such a way that disallowed Bernie Sanders from actually winning the primary to a large extent. Everything from changing voting regulations sporadically to completely discounting votes for Bernie Sanders. There was really just a vast amount of sabotage that you can objectively point towards. And that is something that can be solved democratically. Corruption is something that can be removed to a large extent. Not completely. No matter what you do, there will always be corruption. There will always be subversive, unscrupulous parties. But there are ways to reduce that amount by a vast degree, which don't damage the freedoms and liberties of those who would act in a uncorrupt manner.
Well,
Now, with this election, before you go on, I would say that largely it was mostly because we haven't really had anybody. Even Bernie Sanders isn't an ideal pick, I would say. That wasn't really a joke. We had both on the Democratic and the Republican side jokes. Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Trump himself, Jeb Bush. On the Democratic side, you didn't even really hear about anybody besides Hillary Clinton, and she and herself was a massive gas.
That's the thing. That's the thing. People
So,
would be voting her in without really knowing much about her. They just compare her to somebody else and meh, popular opinion. That's the thing. What I'm trying to get at, it's about people knowing what they're voting for. At the very least, they should know the policies or be a mission to review the policies.
I agree. I agree. And I think that's something that should be instilled within the people. That's the issue, though. That's something that can be solved. That's something that can be worked around. That's something that can be turned into an extremely positive um, set of happenings. You can enlighten the people on these subjects without removing their place in the society. And it's not that very difficult. All you have to do is uh, you don't even have to produce it yourself. You can crowdfund a a great amount of money, millions of dollars, from willing participants who are up and up on politics from both sides, left, right, up, down, doesn't really matter, who wish to see the facts, the pure facts, the unbiased facts, what works, what doesn't, the history behind it, the reasons for it, and all presented in a way that doesn't make you want to fall asleep drooling on your keyboard or your phone. There are people out there who wish to see this sort of enlightenment era for politics. I happen to be one of them. I would have voted for a Republican. I would have voted for an independent. Uh, I would have voted for a libertarian were they the best pick. I don't really give a shit. And there are many out there just like me. And I'm sure you share the very same opinion. You would vote for whoever you think is the best, no matter what their political alignment might be. There are people like us out there. We simply need to unite them. We need a culminating, uniting front in order to change the status quo of uninformed, emotional voting.
Yeah, there should be a change to the status quo. It's just that the status quo to begin with was formed through indoctrination. And since people are already adults, childish adults, immature adults, sure, but since they're already adults, there's a very small chance they'll be snapped back into reality because they've already gotten their fixed perspectives. They're not really going to take their goggles off to see the truth or understand a little bit about what they're voting for. And I think this is because these people don't actually care about politics, except for when politics are romanticized and comedicized, and well, that's what got people voting, maybe.
And that's just the thing. There are more people than the older folks. There are more people than the middle-aged people. There's a whole new generation upon us. And there always will be, so long as people can still breed and host a family, which is becoming increasingly more difficult, I would say, in the modern day, at least in the United States. But still, there will always be a posterity before us, unless some sort of cataclysm happens, which is entirely possible. But perhaps unlikely, at least in the near future. Um, that can override the older folks' set opinions, so long as they are presented with facts and reason and skeptical analysis of things.
Yeah, all right.
And I think both of us would agree on that.
I do. It's just that in practice, I don't think many people are swayed by conversation like those who are coming into it with a broad in mind. I think people just don't really care enough. But I will say something, right? This democracy, in my opinion, did work out. I mean, I technically got the president I wanted, and well, that worked out, despite the fact that I thought we were going to fail miserably, for that matter, as the media predicted, but didn't really predict because it was wrong. So, yeah. If you want, you can check out that legal voting thing. Trust me. The numbers are there.
I'll be more than happy to. I'm sure there was quite a bit of illegal voting, but I'm not sure if it was quite to the degree that Trump would like
Point
to
6
point out.
million approximately. You
Um,
can check it yourself because Hillary Clinton claimed to have the lead, but if you discount those illegal votes, you would find out that Trump would be ahead in the popular vote.
no, that'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't put it past her in the DNC, but we'll see how it pans out. But I would like to make a statement that is perhaps very flattering, but also very indicative of my point. If people weren't interested in the facts and the reasons behind things, uh, such as a political opinion and the very informed position, you consider yourself informed, don't you?
Well, we all do, but are we? Is the question. Here's
Well,
an
there's quite a bit of question to that, and they may well, we both may well be incorrect. However, I would like to state if there were almost no people who were interested in becoming enlightened on these subjects, do you think you'd have 359 subscribers? Or I 69?
look at that. Trust me. Um, this demographics are everything.
Of course, of course. However, continuing on your path and me on mine, we may well become quite popular and quite legendary amongst the community. Who knows? Maybe we become some sort of great figureheads of the YouTubes, and we become enlighteners of hundreds of thousands of peoples.
Yeah.
That to me says there's a great amount of people out there. If just going by their numbers alone, say we both get 500,000 people who are subscribed to us, who are actually at least nominally engaging with what's being said. Uh, People will be out to fund projects such as I was mentioning before. Of putting out factual, critical, skeptical analysis backed by fact and reason on these subjects. They will be.
Well, this.
All it takes is people like us. Now, I don't believe in your message. I really don't. I think we have vastly different. I think we have incompatible uh, um, ideologies and visions. But there will be people, and they won't be
Well,
silent,
this is all.
and they
It's all
will support
dependent
you.
on who you want to be supported by. People who, even a small minority. It doesn't matter what minority, as long as they've got good intentions. You're hosting content to good people, I suppose.
Sure.
I mean, they won't be silent. You're right. There will be an uprising eventually. And I know there's going to be an uprising. I think the far right have, alongside me, kind of had enough of this, well, this society. I think there might be either a branching off of another society, or that society will create, well, will strive upon imperialism. I believe there will be a way to save Europeans, and there will be a way to reduce crime rates, and I do think there will be a way to figure out what to do with all the refugees. Most likely not staying within the country. I hope so, and whatever policies may be on my side or your side, or figure things out. I think eventually there will be a solution to the world's problems. Maybe not my solution, not what I want it to be, but there will be a solution in which resolves the conflict at least. Just not yet.
well, there will always be another conflict to follow. And eventually there will be a reckoning that will bring a solution, desired or otherwise, to the forefront.
Really great talking to you, Xilver.
I've had a great time talking to you as well, Obail. Thank you all for listening. Whether you found my content enjoyable or detestable, please give a thumbs up or down, share the video with others, subscribe, and contribute to the discussion via my social media, join the community at our Discord server through the invite link below, and engage with your fellow watcher via the comments below that. If you'd like to support my channel, help me produce videos, and engage with you all with more frequency, or show your appreciation, I would petition you to become my patron via Patreon, or donate via the PayPal link in the description below. The link to my Patreon page where you may accomplish this and receive rewards based on the amount donated is listed in the description, just below the PayPal link. Till then, everyone, this has been Xilver with a Z.